Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. And if you have not viewed this before, my channel, my name is Tanya. I am a practicing eclectic witch. I work more so with the underworld deities. I've been reading tarot cards for over 25 years, and I am very into different forms of theology. I work with crystals. I work with many forms of divination. Besides that, I am a medium and channeler, so thanks for giving this a watch. Now, I'm not sure with how this channel is going to continue meaning with videos. I love YouTube, Tarot too, and all the contributions as a whole, whether they are for my tarot and oracle things, which are my most watched, but I do watch things on literature and book reviews, of course, especially occult reviews, and of course, horror movie reviews and collections. As my husband, Matt, from You and Your Her Movies channel, is a huge enthusiast and has over 5,000 movies. So if you have not checked out his channel and you watch this, please do so if you're a horror fan. It would be greatly appreciated, and of course, it's amazing. His collection is that lives in my house, so technically, by marriage default, it's mine too. Yeah. So, so at this point, I hope this video finds you all well. I have decided to do or at least try to see how this all goes and whether or not, again, I want to continue with my channel, but to do a monthly theme each month having to do for tarot. Now, for tarot and oracle, we'll have companions, but right now this is just for tarot I'm putting in this video. I will, of course, I have my own side practice and new moon practices and such for the deities I work with and advisement and of course my past working, but the ones I'm focusing with and on this moment will be my monthly tarot themes, which are inspired by songs or song lyrics for each month. This will help me to get maybe better acquainted with certain decks, their combinations, their energies, and of course nostalgia or what resonates with me. Tarot can be, of course, is a very amazing metaphysical and esoteric tool and a key and a door, and it's very good for psychological. Of course, tarot's been my psychological tool and helper and guide for the past few months. Well, ever since I've been turned on to it, but specifically, I think it's anchored me a lot and centered me a lot and taught me a lot about myself, especially in shadow working, in studying history, philosophy, and the occult. So it is a great tool. It's not just for predicting or such. It's for past working, psychological, and of course the aesthetics and the art and the appreciation. There's so much more to this than just that. Plus, I'm a deck collector. My collection is going up rather substantially, but I'm trying to be a bit more, as I love all the decks I've been acquired in the past year, but again, trying to be a little bit more mindful as I'm unemployed, so trying to limit the number other than being for my birthday, which was here in January on the 11th. I turned 45. Yay! But yes, so with that, I got a lot of lovely gifts for that and use the money and the gifts for that. And I may do another video on that with just those few decks. I'm waiting on one that's supposed to be coming today, an oracle deck that is. So before this gets too rambly, which we know I have, I'm just going to go over my first thing. This is for, again, this nostalgia. I collect and connect a lot with music, and music in my magic, in my practice, and of course in my personal life. So this is having to do with song lyrics or themes is what I chose, as I mentioned. Today's video will be on January's theme, which I worked with 3 decks specifically. And I'm wrapping up with. These won't be a surprise, especially like 2 of these. Now, I'm not one that goes with specifically for seasonally or spooky season. Can only use certain decks during spooky season or a certain time of year or season. I go more with what resonates with me, my energy, what decks call to me, maybe certain periods of my life, maybe clients that I work with. So this was inspired for January by the 90s. No surprise, I was a teenager in the 90s. Still one of my favorite decades, along with the 80s and the 70s for music. I'm not much of a new music person, per se. I will try, but yeah, it's kind of stuck back in what works for me. But hey, no problem with that, right? So these decks won't be a surprise to most of you if you are tarot tubers or watch any of the videos or collect or such, but these are mine. So January's, again, I'm getting rambly and repetitive, trying to work on that. So the theme was from the Smashing Pumpkins song, The World is a Vampire. Specifically the lyrics in the first opening lyrics, the world is a vampire. So I decided to use vampire decks because that's what called to me. Plus, the imagery reminds me of the 90s, more back in that time period. Just been kind of nostalgic and reflective. I've actually spoken to a lot of people, and they seem to be that way in the recent time period. So this first deck here is called the Gothic Tarot. Now this is, of course, a deck that is got vampires, heavily vampires, ghosts, spirits, and gargoyles and such, or entities. It's Gothic, of course. It's a moody gray, blue, black, and red lettering palette to it. It is by Joseph Vargo. Joseph Vargo, I love his artwork. Now this, when I saw this deck last year and found out about it, I had his calendar back in the late 90s, and I was in love with that. I got it at Spencer's, if any of you know what that is, which still exists, and a lot of it in Spencer's has gone back to the 90s. So some of it has had a nod back. But back then, that store rocked, just like Hot Topic did. Not so much now, Hot Topic, but that's a different video or a different time. So this video right now is reflecting on the Gothic Tarot. Don't mind me repeating this, going back and forth. I'm having a problem with insomnia lately, really bad. So I'm operating 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night or day. So yeah, luckily I'm unemployed, so at least this is not affecting a work schedule. So with this deck here in Joseph Vargo's, I do recommend. It is a very inexpensive deck. I think I paid $15 for this last spring in 2023. Comes with a flimsy box, so it's actually in a tarot bag. This or envelope made by my mother-in-law, and I do recommend, because there's like hardly any guidebook with it, I highly recommend to buy separately, which is also on Amazon, the guidebook, which is like $15 by Joseph Vargo, and Joseph Giorgillo. I'm sorry, again, my lighting's bad, and of course I'm half awake. So, yeah. So this deck here is one of my favorites because of the aesthetic. The cardstock sucks. The deck's already warped, and I barely used it other than randomly a few times last year, and of course a week, and then the past couple days this month. But, and it's been stored and traveled barely. But, hey, it's not really the cardstock I wanted it for. It's for the aesthetic. I love Gothic stuff. It's a very underworld type of deck for me. And it is a deck that is connected and reads well and connects with one of my patron deities, which is Hades. So it's quite well for that. It is a great reader. Yes, it is great for spooky season. Look at that High Priestess, one of my favorite cards in this deck. Oh, here we go, making a mess. Sorry about that. If you can put up with my clumsiness, that's all good. And look at that one. That moon is one of my favorite moon cards, and one of my favorite ones of this deck, of course. I'm not going to show every card, otherwise I'll be here forever. And we know if you watch any of my previous videos, I get a bit rambly. That gargoyle. Now this deck might be quite a bit dark, depending on your aesthetic, your taste, or what resonates with you. But if you are into this, or even into spooky season decks, or vampires, or underworld, for that matter, work with underworld deities or spirits, this is a deck for you. It is a bit pippish, as you can see. Look at that. For that hermit. I get that one quite a lot, to be honest. So yes, so there is videos out there for that, like on that. I believe the Astral Lady, I believe she has that, one of the videos. I found other ones on there in the guidebook walkthrough. So get that check out. And again, thanks for bearing with my clumsiness and my rambling. I'm going to go on to the next deck. I just wanted to show a few and mention that one. This one here, look at this lovely bag made by my mother-in-law. It's appropriate for the deck too. And I'm sure this deck is not going to be a surprise to anyone that, of course, has vampire decks. It is one of the very popular ones out there on TarotTube. And that is, of course, Tarot of Vampires by Ian Daniels. Now, I got this deck primarily because of Owl Moon 513 Racine at that channel, and of course the Tarot Shrink. Because of their constant flip-throughs, mentions of it, but made primarily for the across-the-board of all the reviews I heard of the guidebook, which I heard was very esoteric, very thick and meaty, and very incisive, and of course describes what the imagery is on the deck. And this deck is full of imagery. So if you are into esotericism, well, I probably said that wrong, but if you're into that, you're into learning more about decks or why certain images or things are on there, things that you may not see to the regular first, second, or even 10th view of a deck, and how it relates, or you're into vampires like I am, or into the goth or 90s scene, or you like spooky season decks, or even very romanticism, this deck would of course be for you. Again, not the greatest card stock. I prefer thicker card stocks myself. And this one's very pippish, but I highly recommend it. It's on Amazon. It's a mass market deck, and it's about $30. Or that's what I paid for it. I love this. It's got a very, sort of like Angel, Spike, Buffy, vampire vibes, comic book vibes, the 80s vibes too for the vampires. But none of that. I'm sorry. I'm just not a fan of those glittery type of vampires. It's got a little cheese to it too. This deck does. But I love it. I love the aesthetic. I love it. I love reading the guidebook. Now, I have not tried to do full spreads or things other than daily draws with this deck. However, it is still a great reader to sit down and get with the guidebook and get a different understanding and more in-depth perspective on the cards and symbolism. It'll teach you a lot, but it's not overwhelming either, and it's very relative. So I love it. And you can choose to read one part of the guidebook, or you can choose to read the whole section on the card. Now, lastly, and thanks for bearing with me so far through this camera and my mess and in my rambling. This deck will not come as a surprise to anybody from that is on TarotTube or is a collector. As they just did their 4th release. I believe this is the 4th edition of the Bohemian Gothic Tarot by Baba Studios. This deck is amazing and lovely. It was worth all the wait. They are based out in Ireland. This is, of course, hence the title Bohemian Gothic. Now, just like the Gothic Tarot I just mentioned, I would highly recommend investing if you are getting this deck, or have not even, but have it, in getting the companion guidebook, as not only does it give deeper meanings than the traditional little white book that comes with the deck, but it also has goes into some of the imagery, pictures, inspiration of like postcards that they chose from like the Victorian Gothic era from like the 1800s to the early 1900s, the 20th century. Why they chose certain things, the symbology, the light and dark meanings are quite interesting in their take and explanation on the cards. It completely gives me a different perspective on the cards, besides the fact that I love that. And it's gorgeous, and I love the expressions on the people's face. It's very quirky, very incisive, dark, yet approachable. Maybe not quite like the aesthetic of the Gothic tarot per se, or if you're not a fan of tarot vampires. This is more versatile because it's got vampires, demons, which are not outright looking demons, and other creatures. There's a lot of bats, castles, and such as hence that. And the guidebook also has, typically, besides having a great write-up and different take on the cards, it also has often things, snippets and paragraphs, poems, lines, or inspirations from the likes of Bram Stoker, and of course Edgar Allan Poe, not to be surprised, or other things from those time frames that are associated with the cards, the meanings, and has a also affects that. So it's a very evocative deck, as are the other two for me. And also another Underworld deck. No surprise. The only complaint I have is this deck has the cold stamping. It's very, in certain lighting, it's very hard to see the cards and the details, so it can get overwhelming. I have not used this for large spreads. I only got this back like end of November. It came to me. So basically, I've only used it for daily draws this month. But with using the guidebook with that, I've already learned a lot. This deck, again, just like the Tarot of Vampires or the guidebook from the Gothic Tarot, teaches me different perspectives from the artists and the writers of that. And I love that. I love when you get more traditional than the typical little white book or the Rider-Waite-Smith, like traditional meanings. I'm more of a soft girl, not, or toast or whatever you say, but I'm more of that. But I like more in-depth things and things that learn and teach me and change my point of view and my opinions. Constantly learning and growing is one of my things in this life. I believe should be with anybody with any circumstance, situations, or knowledge. One can never know enough, whether it's with tarot and oracle, divination, or with literature, life, or other interests or hobbies, or day-to-day practices or life things. Getting rambly here. You can kind of see that stamping right there, that one. But look at the details, sorry about that. The Nine of Pentacles. So yes, so it's a beautiful deck. There's literally dozens of videos out there that are easy, accessible. You know, the older versions too of this deck. Again, for the Bohemian Gothic. So if you are into a very classy, semi-dark deck, you are a collector, you like tasteful things, you like evocative, somewhat provocative things, meaning in your thinking, your feelings, or things that challenge you, check out this deck. Now, thanks for bearing with me in my moving camera and stuff. I don't have any of that fancy equipment. Neither am I going to invest in it anytime soon. For the same reason I mentioned earlier, I'm unemployed. and really not so. So I hope that you do like my content. And again, January's theme was from the Smashing Pumpkins song. The world is from Bullet with Vampires. Oh my God, really? I'm glad this is wrapping up. From Bullet with Butterfly Wings. There we go. If I can get a title right, even simply enough to be great. But the theme is from the first line, the world is a vampire. Thanks for checking this out and again bearing with me and my ramblings from insomnia and giving my video and channel a chance. Now, I would kindly and greatly appreciate if you like, comment, subscribe, because that's the only way that YouTube does actually give its algorithm and gets me more likes and that, because it feels like no one actually sometimes enjoys my channel, and or that it's not getting out there even though I had it a few years. And so yes, but I'm not going to go on with that or validation and such. So with that today, thank you for watching this and bearing with me and my craziness. There may be more videos to come, and all those that have been following me along or watching my videos, I greatly appreciate it. I hope it finds you all well. Check out my Instagram at Little Miss Scarell79 and my card reading page at Under Our Dark Moon Tarot Readings at Facebook. And with that, have a good day.